Ukraine threatens Russia's oil exports while Sweden is granting them the biggest aid package of the war so far. This is happening while the Russians face increasing troubles with the recruitment of new personnel. But we'll talk about this as well as about anything else that has happened along the front lines and behind them in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. Surfshark VPN is sponsoring this channel for this month. If you want to bypass geo-blocking or hide your internet activity all with a convenient app, then use Surfshark VPN for just $2.09 a month by using my link. You get 4 months extra as well. Thank you, Surfshark, for sponsoring this channel. Ukraine has struck the oil refinery in Volgograd. They also struck the Druzhba pipeline, and here Tendar on Twitter has given us the direction where the oil pipeline is going towards the west, and it shows the pumping stations. The Ukrainians have struck a pumping station here, close to their border, and each of those stations is necessary to keep pumping the oil westwards. If the Ukrainian side manages to destroy or take them otherwise out for a while, the pipeline will halt, and thus the capability of the Russians to keep exporting oil. In total, Ukraine struck more than 25 strategic targets in January: refineries, oil depots, defense industry. Also, report is there is no more oil export right now from Ust-Luga, here close to St. Petersburg, after the Ukrainians have struck a pumping station there on January 4th. So likely now the oil depots have run dry and the pumping station might still be out. The exact degree is still unclear, but we see a focused attack wave of the Ukrainians against the Russian oil industry in the last month. The Russians have struck Ukraine on their side. Today alone, at numerous deaths, numerous casualties, among them killed, are reported from Ukraine after Russian missile attacks. Among them, most of them civilians, or the reported civilian death are in the 2-digit from today's strikes alone. Over the past few days, obviously every day the Russian attacks were also happening. We switch to the developments along the front line, and here we have in Pogrebki a new a geolocation from a couple of days ago showing us the Ukrainians on the western side of Pogrebki. This means that Pogrebki seems to be still fully under Ukrainian control after the Russians have operated in this area. The Ukrainians must have taken the town back, or the Russians just were rolling through, bypassing Ukrainians. At least as of now, it seems to be clear that Pogrebki is still solidly in Ukrainian hands. That seems to be the only thing that can be reported from Kursk, apart from the fact that the North Koreans have have disappeared from the front lines, and according to various reports, they've suffered over 5,000 casualties. The latest numbers that are being spread around are 5,500, which would be roughly 50% of all North Korean personnel that they have deployed towards Russia might already be casualties in their attacks. We switch to the Kharkiv area, and here in Vovchansk we have a geolocation that shows us that the Ukrainians have advanced a little bit north from the refractory plant here. So in this area here, I think we already see it on the deep state map. Yep, it shows it here that this area is now likely under Ukrainian control as well. So they managed to gain a few meters towards the north in this area. We go to the eastern front, and here we have the Russians crossing the river at the Oskil River at another point. They've now taken the town of Novomilynsk, which is here, and thus creating another bridgehead over the Oskil, increasingly threatening the northern flank of Kupiansk. Further to the south, we have close to Terny, we have a development. We have a geolocation of this point here as well. It's to the east here, southeast of Terny. Roughly in this area here, the Russians have advanced somewhat towards the west. We're operating here, but overall no massive change in territory that can be confirmed. We go south of the Seversky Donetsk, the river here. Seversk, the usual fighting is being reported, but I cannot confirm any change in territory. We have developments from Chasiv Yar though, and here the Russians have reached once again the southern part of the center. We have a geolocation of this as well. And the pro-Ukrainian deep state map, as you can see, is now handing over that territory completely to the Russians in this area. this was it from the Kharkiv, from the Chasiv Yar area. We go to Toretsk, and from Toretsk we have numerous geolocations over the past couple days. We have them here in the northeast, the outermost houses. I mean, there are 2 lanes still left, but almost the outermost houses. This is in the center of the mine at Krimske. This is in the south, directly at the south, at 2 points. So at this point, I'm not sure where inside of Toretsk Ukrainians are still present. According to reports, there might still be 2%. Some even claim 5% of Toretsk still be in Ukrainian hands. I cannot confirm, though. I have not seen Ukrainian presence in Toretsk for a couple of days. This is another geolocation, and it shows us that the Russians are here in the eastern part of Shcherbynivka. This makes it likely, first of all, it's here on the map, here. And the Russians have previously operated in this area too. It makes it likely that the current front line is more or less moving like this here, is more or less in this direction, as we had numerous sightings and proof of Russian presence in the southern part of Shcherbynivka over the past few days. It seems the deep state map is not accurate here, and by now this territory might be in Russian hands, at least this, probably Leonidivka as well. We go further west to the area of Pokrovsk, and here we have the Russians west of Kotline. A geolocation here as well. Moments, that was the right one. Here we have them west of Kotline. It's a small mine here, and we have Russian presence in there as well now. This means at this point, so the Russians are fortifying their position here, but apart from that, I cannot confirm additional changes in territory. We go towards Kurakhove, down here. Here we have the Russians in the town of Andrivka again. We have a geolocation here where they are on the eastern part where they are in the eastern part. They have reached this point. And they are now pushing Andrivka from the east and from the northeast as well. Then we have the Russians south in the Dachne pocket. We have a geolocation here that they continue to collapse the pocket. This time they're north of Sukhiyali. We have the geolocation there, and this was at this point here. The Russians have roughly reached this point. Further to the west, I cannot see that the Russians managed to exploit their capture of Velika Novoselka. I do not see that anything here has changed. And the Russians are reporting Ukrainian attacks here at Kamyanske, but again, no claims that anything has changed on the ground. Overall, while the front line is not moving much, the overall situation doesn't really change either. Vladimir Putin has said in an interview that if the Western deliveries to Ukraine would stop, the war in Ukraine would be over within 2 weeks, basically acknowledging the importance of and emphasizing the importance of the Western aid. And the aim out of this is clear: for him to win the war in Ukraine is to make the West stop Ukraine. As he says himself, if the West stops, the war is basically immediately won. The Russians are facing trouble though too. According to opposition media, right now there are only 40 volunteers signing up to the Russian military daily in Moscow. This is down from 200 to 250 last summer when Ukraine invaded Kursk Oblast, which obviously led to a wave of nationalism and thus more volunteers. And they are claiming that out of the 40 daily, now 50% are foreigners, mostly from China, but also from Africa and former Soviet republics, as well as people who try to avoid criminal prosecutions by signing up for the military. The GOR says the Russians aim to recruit 126,000 men out of the prisons this year, out of prisons and jails. This in total would be roughly half of what the Russians will need according to the Ukrainian military intelligence. According to them, the Russians need at least 280,000 this year. We'll have to see how it continues, because the Russians keep increasing the fees, but at the same time, mill bloggers, for instance, are reporting again and again that soldiers have died within a week after signing up, showing that they are basically completely their lives being wasted, and this must have an an effect on fresh recruitment as well. In troop generation in Ukraine, we have some technical innovation. The Ukrainians are increasingly facing fiberglass drones that have the trouble of being resistant against electronic warfare. And we have a video here where we see a Ukrainian drone approaching it and taking down the fiberglass drone. This here is where the fiberglass is inside. And you can see the RPG-7 warhead in the front, and apart. So this is where it spools out the cable that that provides the drone with the data from the base, from the ground station, basically, and makes it resistant. According to some claims, this is being done with radar systems. No idea what kind of radar systems, but as those fiberglass drones are fairly slow, this allows them to see them early enough and thus start their own FPV drones, which are much faster and intercept the drones with other drones. That at least is currently seems to be the way to combat fiberglass drones. Also, the Ukrainian military journalist Butusov has said the Ukrainians are disbanding the 158th, 159th, 160th and 162nd Brigade. They are part of the 9 new brigades that were set up last year. Only the 156 will continue its training because its training has already progressed too far. This is a direct consequence of the order that the Ukrainian President Zelensky gave to stop creating new brigades and not fill up old ones. We talked about it in the last situation report, and now it's already showing its effect in the Ukrainian military. And we have news about international... No, first of all, we have one more thing. This is showing us the Russians, the Ukrainians using JDAMs with 1,000-pound warheads. This is new. So far, we've only seen them using smaller ones, and you can see it here being dropped by a Sukhoi 27 of the Ukrainians, and thus to attack Russian positions. And the Ukrainians themselves made a mistake here. Yeah, the Ukrainians themselves have innovation as well. What we see here is that the Baba Yaga drone is now getting fiberglass as well. As he demonstrates here, the fiberglass. This is the where it's being guided from. And the Russians seem to really fear this drone, and he demonstrates that it's really stress resistant. It can't be ripped. It can easily be broken, but when it's about pull, there is no way to get it destroyed easily. And this allows the Baba Yaga now to be electronic warfare resistant as well. Then we have the Swedish government here, the Minister of Defense, announcing that they are adding an aid package. First of all, we have the United Kingdom sending another 2.5 billion. They promised a new aid package which would include air defense and production in Ukraine. Finland is sending another 200 million euros. Czech Republic is thinking about another ammunition initiative, and Ukraine will receive another batch of F-16s from the Dutch. The Ukrainians will also receive 1.2 billion US dollars from Sweden. That's their biggest package so far. 90 million of those will be allocated to build Ukrainian long-range drones and missiles, so to help the Ukrainians finance its domestic long-range capabilities. It will also include 16 additional combat boats 90. It will include 146 trucks, heavy lift trucks. It will include 1,500 TOW anti-tank weapons, 284s. 534 million are allocated for new production of equipment that can be used according to need. It can include artillery and other pieces. So according to the word the defense minister used, apparently the Ukrainians can say, we would like to please get more Archer artillery, so that will finance new artillery systems. So the Swedish government doesn't just provide the Ukrainians with aid, it allows the Ukrainians to choose what they want to get themselves, which is obviously the much better choice for Ukraine itself than to just get what they're being given. Well, that was already it from me for today. Before I finish, I quickly want to thank the donors. I've received from Brian Tice a very nice message and the book about Port Arthur, 1904 to 1905, the first modern siege. Thank you very much. And I have Sam Garcia once again being very generous with warships in the War of the Pacific. That should be a really interesting book for me. And he also sent me South Pacific Air War, a massive book about a very interesting topic as well. And I also received US Navy protected cruisers without any explanation who was the donor. So I have no idea if it's from you, Sam, as well, or from somebody else, whoever it was from. Thank you so much. This is really a way to show me, a generous way to show me you appreciate what I'm doing. So I want to give you my heartfelt thanks. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment if you have anything to add. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.